Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you back to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snyder, and we have got Alexander McCaig back once again. And it's been a long time. I think it's been a month.
It's been too long, Mark. It's been too long. It feels good to be back on the air with you.
How is that? How can time go that fast?
I don't know. You know, people in their older years start to say that like time feels like it's speeding up.
Yeah.
I think it's probably, and this is totally hypothetical, is that the personal sense of time compression occurs in age because it's forcing you to take action. It's almost like forcing the evolution of a human being as they begin to get older.
That's fascinating.
You have to make the choices because time is compressing. It feels like it's compressing on you. So you have to do things you otherwise have been ignoring. So that's just probably one of my thoughts around like why people have that sensation. But yeah, it does feel like it's moving quick.
So you were in Mexico recently. Was that a vacation or was it work?
Yeah. No, I went down to Mexico for vacation. Went down to Cabo San Lucas. I was down in the tip of the peninsula down there. And it was in a place called Pedregal that overlooks the Sea of Cortez in the Pacific. And what's interesting about that area is that you can, if this is correct, you can account for 30% of all marine species can be found in the Sea of Cortez, which is really neat.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite biodiverse in the ocean itself, and the strata, like the rock strata and flora, were super cool. I love the big saguaro cacti, the really tall ones. Some of them were like hundreds of years old, just massive.
No kidding.
Dwarf me. Yeah. You ever seen a cactus that's 30 feet tall?
No, I don't think so.
No. So it was really neat. Quite a beautiful place. Probably one of the crowning moments, though, was watching an osprey hunt at low tide. It was amazing. Watching it dive and hit the water and pull the fish up was just incredible.
That's good that you have the capacity to appreciate those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I wish more humans did. More Earth humans, anyway.
Yeah, more Earth humans. That's a good clarification.
Are you a FIGU official member?
No.
I'm not either.
Yeah. I have some reasons for it. I don't have an answer yet. I wrote to Billy Meyer asking a question, and I need to have that. He hasn't responded yet.
He hasn't responded.
Said that he would, but until I get a response to that question, then I will choose to pony up and be a member. Yeah,
you're gonna hold off then.
Yeah, I can do that. I feel like an unofficial one though, Mark. It's just all that I've done for the case.
Right, right, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's they have a protocol and some very tough rules, and it's no piece of cake.
No, I'm not worried about like the rules and stuff like that.
Oh, really? That's not your deal.
No, I could care less about the rules. Mine's about knowledge access, really.
Really? What do you mean by? Do you feel like you are not able to get a hold of information that you would like to? Ooh.
That's exactly correct.
No kidding. Is it hard to elaborate on, or personal?
Again, I don't have the answer, so I don't know. For me, some things you don't have access to unless you're a member, which it supports a nonprofit that's doing a great cause, bar none. When knowledge is limited, though, I'm unsure for what reasons. My only speculation is that maybe some of the stuff that can be learned could be used both ways. When you get to a point of understanding creation energy and the power of the spirit, it's like a sword. You can use it to defend or you can use it to harm. So my only thought is that some of the material is for those who are more serious. Could be used by people who may be damaging in some respects. So I guess that would be why some of the information is withheld in terms of like knowledge, but I'm unsure. It's totally speculative.
So you were saying that some people that do become official members then have access to information that the rest of the world doesn't?
Yeah. And I wouldn't say that they understand it. They just have access to it. It doesn't mean they would understand it and know how to use it appropriately, but they're supporting the nonprofit, so they get access to other published works that I don't have access to.
And do you want access to those other?
I want them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to like flat out, I want them all. I want to read them all. Yeah.
Huh. And you're willing to pay for those probably, aren't you?
Of course. Yeah.
Wow.
I remember I was over in Switzerland, and I know we had a previous episode of my experience there. And I said I wanted to purchase all of this. I literally walked in the room. It's like a library. You can choose the things you want. I said, I'll take all of this. Can't buy it. I was like, oh.
Did you buy one book?
No, can't even buy one of the thing that I wanted.
Oh.
Yeah.
You remember the book? Remember the guy from Canada that did the great presentation on reincarnation? And you can watch it on YouTube. And the book, the name of the book, if I heard the title, I'd recognize it. But that would be a great book to get, I think. Of course, you'd have to probably be pretty proficient at German.
And that's the other element of it. They're only written in German. They're not translated. So you have to understand. Sprech Deutsch. Otherwise, you're not going to read it or comprehend anything that's going on.
You could go through it with a German dictionary or with something like DeepL or something like that.
Yeah, you could go through with DeepL. Yeah, and you got to remember there's German and then there's High German. So, with word roots and meanings of those words for how they were used in a High German sense rather than normal Low German speak, you'd have to know the difference.
So you're saying that some of it is in High German,
the whole thing's in High German. I'm not sure if DeepL specializes in High German. That's probably why there's errors and requires corrections after it goes through the DeepL, and then people read it and then authorize a translation after the fact.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So all of the Meyer writings are High German, and DeepL is kind of focused on translating German.
Yeah, that's
rather than
correct.
High German.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of variations on the DeepL. It'll do a lot.
No, it's impressive. Listen, totally impressive.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking it in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying it does require a second set of eyes for people that are native to High German itself. And you also have to be native to the way Mr. Meyer writes. Because if you don't contextually understand how he writes, then it's not going to.
He has his own words. He creates his own words, his own concepts, and everything. Yeah,
it's like fucking Shakespeare of the spirit, You know
what you were saying there about time forcing us to evolve and events taking place. I'm going to mention this briefly because I told you last time you were on about one of my cats.
That's right.
Well, I had to put Lola, my German Shepherd mix, to sleep a couple of weeks ago.
Oh my gosh, Mark, what's going on at the house?
I think it's one of those compression things you were talking about, where I'm having to face this issue of death. So it makes me also kind of be introspective about myself. You know what I mean?
What have you learned?
Well, I've learned that I've taken on the responsibility of carrying through the death phase, all these animals that have come into my periphery that I've tried to help. Yeah, anyways,
you removed them from what I'd say is you've removed them from an organic environment. You've moved them into a synthesized human one. So
yeah,
if you're responsible for their care, you're also responsible for seeing them out of this world. Because they're not going to die naturally in the woods.
Right. That's a very interesting point. Because the calico, she had chosen her little area to go. Like a bush, she wouldn't go in the garage. She didn't really want to. She stayed away from the group. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because she knew she was going. Anyway, Lola, she had this severe constipation thing. She was 13 years old. And I
have to ask how you found out.
Wow, you can see her when you walk her.
Oh, okay.
She's having a real hard time.
Poor girl.
But we took her to the vet 6 months earlier, and he put her. They have this process they can do to clean them out,
Mm-hmm.
and it really did help. But then it came back, and he told us it's not really a solution. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It'll keep returning. So eventually, we made the decision to put her to sleep. But I just thought I would share that with you. That and it seems to be related to what you're saying. This time compression thing, forcing me to evolve, forcing me to face death, forcing me to make the hard decisions.
Can't escape it. And then as you
Can't.
get older, your friends die around you too.
Oh.
And then you're faced with all of that, you know?
Well, I think I've lost touch with my sisters, but I'm kind of afraid to push it too much farther. You know? Well, one of them has a spouse who he was addicted to opiates.
Okay.
He's also has a gambling addiction. And my youngest sister she has some, I would say, mental health kind of issues.
Yeah.
And then my other sister, who is better, has definitely had some drug issues, addictions to drugs. So, but that's another thing I'm going to have to face here. I can't just, ignore them for eternity.
You can't. You just got to remember, love is a function of understanding. So the number one thing you can do is give them as much understanding as possible. They are responsible for their own lives. I'm not asking you to step in and fix it or take over for them or lead them.
Yeah.
But at least be there to listen to those, because the affliction of addiction is taking the place of some other pain that they have. They're trying to net it out with something else. So it's a deeper point in the human being that needs to be discussed. And then if it gets to a point where it doesn't get controlled, then the mental illness becomes worse and worse and worse. It's almost impossible to claw back from in some respects.
I really appreciate your input on that. That seems very clear and very cogent and very to the point. But I think you're right. And I was just thinking, my sisters, and I didn't mean to make this show about my sisters, that's for sure. They chose drugs at an early age when it was cool, in the 70s and early 80s. And that was, like you said, that was probably an escape for them, where they didn't have to, so they could put off the evolution, dealing with the difficulty, because that's what the trade-off is, right?
Oh, it's detachment from the self. Yeah.
Explain.
And not the, it's a detachment from the senses and perception and thought patterns you're normally having. When you start flushing your brain with like DMT, synthesized or whatever,
right,
or taking other sorts of drugs, you're removing yourself out of your normal course, and you're also opening up things that usually take a long, long time to figure out how to manage through meditation to open up.
Oh.
Now, when people crack into stuff like that, and they get into this bliss state without understanding how to control or even appreciate the level of bliss, when they get snapped back to the pain of their reality because they left pain and they moved into some sort of synthesized environment, they can't remanage the world that they're brought back into. It's too painful. And so the only way they can find their escape is to go back to that thing that allowed them to leave the things that they never chose to confront. And if anything, it makes them weaker in mind as they do that over time. Because then you don't face anything that is of a challenge or a necessity for your own evolution. And it's not the fact that drugs were cool. Drugs are never cool. Drugs are just a thing. That's like saying, like guns are cool. It's the purpose for why things are used. Okay? And when it comes to drugs, people wanted an escape. Maybe they wanted a change in identity, right? Maybe they were looking for an experience that they thought they couldn't find elsewhere. And a lot of people jump to psychoactive substances because the amount of time it takes to go through meditation, transcendental meditations, whatever it may be, to get to that point of enlightenment in some respects, or, evolution in the consciousness, they don't want to put the work in. So people take the shortcut. You don't realize that taking the shortcut is like when people that have been poor their entire life win the lottery. What do? They end up spending all the money.
All the money quickly.
It's the same exact concept or metaphor. And you can see it everywhere. And that pattern tends to repeat itself. It's because people have become work shy over time. They're shy of work. They're shy of life. They're shy of challenge.
That's a nice way to put it, man. Very diplomatic way to put it. Remember Contact Report 5 when Semyase said, speaking about the Earth humans, they have indeed already been weakened too much.
Yeah, too much.
That's what you were saying. And become addicted to unreality.
Yeah.
To still be able to recognize and digest honest, undiplomacy as truth.
Yeah, so they don't see it. They're just abused and driven by bias and controlled by the black rocks and can't see when the politicians or the news is lying to them, or when they see something online because they're completely attached to their devices and they saw it for 7 seconds. They consider themselves experts. There's no depth and there's no ability to reason through the massive amounts of noise. And it's becoming increasingly more difficult as our population continues to grow and more of that population becomes technologically involved, especially with the modus operandi of Elon Musk and thinking we need to continue to grow the population on this planet. You can see how these problems become exacerbated and the consciousness of human beings become weakened over time. It becomes very obvious at that point.
This one little Contact Report 5 has made such a big impact on me. And it's like I keep getting the same information. I see it all the time. Addicted to unreality. Mm-hmm. Because people get where they just can't stop looking at their cell phones, right? They just, they're stuck.
Well, it's not even the phones, Mark. It's also just unreal thoughts. Say, for instance, you work in finance. You've worked on Wall Street. Mm-hmm. Let's just role play with me for a second. And that's all you know. You assume the world runs like Wall Street.
Yeah.
So now if you go take that Wall Street guy with his puffer vest and his button-down Vineyard Vine shirt and you go stick him on a farm somewhere, he's not going to know what the hell is going on. He's not going to understand conceptually what is actually occurring. He's not going to understand land management, relationship with the animals. His thought processes for transactions with people are going to be completely different. He's detached from a reality, and he's lived in a world purely of transaction rather than of mutual understanding and agreement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, it's all the same. But it's unreality when it comes to devices, but it's unreality of thoughts, unreality of relationships. So many elements.
I'm going to probably have to shut down my Discord. Keeps beeping at me, even
blowing up.
Yeah, it's anyway. It might be good for people to be forced at some time in their life. Well, I don't like the idea of forcing people, but to have to switch to a different line of work and wouldn't that be Mark, you were just describing? It was so interesting.
You're right. Force is wrong. That's not the right word.
Yeah.
You can't force people to do anything because then you're not respecting their free will as the law of this creation.
Right.
What happens is, if people don't figure it out, they don't figure it out. That's the whole point of living and dying. So you can come back, but you're going to have to repeat the whole goddamn thing again until you figure out where you actually were, because you need to find progression. Right? So you're going to have to learn through this thing. And then it's like, okay, I learned a little bit, not a huge amount, but a little bit. So hopefully on the next life, I learn a little bit more. And if you're really lucky, you learn a leap. But most people have no interest in changing, staying in their jobs. So you can't really force them to change. People need to take on the responsibility of change for themselves. They must see the necessity and reverence for life that is around them. And once they can connect with that, then they can see why change is necessary. Then they can understand why life is worth protecting and preserving at all costs.
Now, I sent you a link about the existing life in the universe. It was really what I took away from it was the neutrino. Not that I absorbed everything that they were saying, but I don't know if you.
Well, you can absorb neutrinos.
They go right through you.
That's a shitty physics pun.
They'll go right through lead too.
Yeah, they will.
I think miles of lead or some crazy thing like that, but
more than miles.
And some people say they travel faster than light, but I guess there's a bit of a discussion, argument about that.
Yeah, with mass. The issue is mass. How do you get something of so much mass to travel faster than something with like so little mass? But neutrinos are interesting. So neutrinos occur through large fundamental primeval explosions that occur in the universe.
Like supernova type thing?
Yeah, you get them from supernovas, you get them from the death of stars, and stars can turn into white dwarfs and other things depending on the way they collapse. And there's different types within the dwarf states, or they can just create so much mass, such a compression of mass from the star itself that creates a black hole. But in the event of that, it throws out this explosion of neutrinos.
Mm-hmm.
And they go everywhere. And as you and I know, the universe is extremely large, and neutrinos are in infinite supply because stars are going through cycles. Whole galaxies are going through cycles, generating endless and endless and endless amounts of neutrinos that are flying around everywhere. And in the beginning, they had thought that neutrinos don't carry a charge. And neutrinos also fall into a couple groups of like muons and tau neutrinos and electron neutrinos. They do have a weak charge, and they actually do, fundamentally, which they see now, have some sort of mass. A little bit. It's difficult to measure because our instrumentation really isn't there, but something exists. So it's cool that these things are carriers and builders or building blocks, but they exist everywhere in absolute innumerable quantity and carry some sort of charge with them.
There's a letter they use for the neutrino. It's kind of a ancient Greek. Looks like a VU or an NV. I don't know the ancient Greek, but for some reason the neutrino is denoted by sometimes the letter V. I don't know if you noticed that or not, or if you have anything to add to that.
No, I'm not a physicist by trade, and I'm probably going to get a rap of shit for saying that they carry some sort of charge, but people will find out that they probably do.
Right.
I mean, they're called neutrinos to be neutral, but when bound with a tau or an electron, or gluon, whatever the fuck it is, there's charge with it. But they do have mass, and if things have mass, that means they have an energy storage. And so when I say charge, maybe that's the wrong word. I'll just say that they carry energy in them. That's my clarification. So before anyone gives me a ration of shit, they have energy because there's some mass involved. Okay, E equals mc squared. So there's something in there that exists. Question is, Mark, can we capture such a thing? If neutrinos are pervading through everywhere, can you capture them? Can you guide them if they have a little bit of mass?
What are they called? Phantom particles sometimes?
Yeah, because they shoot through stuff.
Yeah.
I remember how they measure it. They have these big tanks filled with a liquid. I forget what the liquid is. I don't know if it's heavy water or what. But they can actually see when there's like explosions from neutrinos, and they leave, I don't know, some sort of path that it cuts through. I'm trying. I faintly remember how the science works behind it, but what do I know? Why were you interested in neutrinos?
Well, I always stumble into stuff when I'm looking at stuff in the Meyer material. Yeah. And that link I sent you, I was reading that link, and then I started reading about these two scientists, and
Clyde and the other gentleman,
Clyde Cohen and Frederick Rhines, and they said something about a poltergeist in this experiment that they ran.
Yeah,
and they talked about the special liquid.
Yeah, this liquid.
Tank.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, and then they could see, in a metaphorical sense, see the path of the neutrinos going through it.
And I think the Meyer group or the Playaran talk about the neutrino. They call it a telenon. Telenon?
No, telenin, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah.
Telonin. So telo comes from a Greek root. Fulfillment, end. It's like the maxim, right, of the thing.
And they were saying that you could destroy the universe with these things.
If you created a chain reaction with the neutrinos. So people have speculated, and I really hope they haven't made one, with neutrino bombs. You've seen them in science fiction and stuff like that. But the problem is, this isn't just like an atomic explosion that happens on our Earth that would incinerate the Earth's atmosphere. Neutrinos are something that pervade all matter and life in the universe. So if you had that chain reaction going on, it'd just be you kill everything.
Yeah, it causes some kind of chain reaction.
Yeah, I haven't studied it. The chain reaction in neutrinos. I'm sure some have thought about it, but I'd have to go back and look at it more.
What it says here, a gleaming explosion would transform the Earth into a glowing white cloud of gas in less than 5/100ths of a second, while the chain reaction would race out into free space with the speed of light to transform everything into gas and destroy it through exploding and burning up.
Yeah.
So this is craziness. Maybe this is why certain things in the Meyer material are not available.
Remember what I just said at the beginning of this call?
Yeah.
The show. I said not all the knowledge is accessible to everybody, because you can use it cuts both ways. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably the answer to my question that I wrote, but he can write back and confirm it to me. I wouldn't know because I haven't read the material. Kind of puts me in a paradox.
So, can you tell us a little more about this creational impulse to strive?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I know it's there and I'm using it and I'm working with it, and that's usually when I'm happiest. Sometimes I'm not really following that impulse.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
Did you get out of bed in the morning when you woke up? Slept and then woke up, right?
Oh yeah.
You got out of bed, right?
I got out of bed more than once.
How did you get out of bed?
That's another story. Yeah.
No problem. But how did you get out of bed?
I just put one foot on the
exactly
floor
right.
and the next foot on the floor.
You are describing the creational impulse right there. You are taking action to put motion into your life.
Okay.
To interact with your environment and create new causes and effects through a massive chain of events, much like a neutrino explosion that would consume the entire universe. You are going through and doing these things. And whether you're consciously aware of it, evolution is occurring. Your subconscious guides in a lot of things, but consciously, maybe you're not choosing to accelerate it. Maybe you are ignoring the impulse of work and challenge.
I think I am.
And recognizing the interconnectedness of your life with nature and vice versa.
But isn't part of the trick here is being able to insert the rest time in there at the proper place so that you can be ready to strive again? I mean, because we can't work, 20 hours a day, can we?
I mean, you could. Depends on the person.
But wouldn't that hurt your health? Wouldn't that be
No, let me tell you something. Okay. As I sit down and meditate, which requires almost nothing in terms of physical exertion for me, I'm striving.
The meditation's the key.
When you sleep, you are striving. Why? Because your mind is decompressing and digesting all of the material it has taken in from the day before or life before it, and then generating new sequences for you. No matter what you do, you cannot stop striving. It happens continuously, consciously or unconsciously for you.
In other words, you're saying if you try to escape the striving, it just doesn't work. You're going to be
but it's still striving. What happens when you try to run away from your nature? You learn that it does not work. So by actually making a mistake affords you a correction. Everything is a learning experience. You cannot help but strive in absolutely everything you do in life. And the question is, do you want to consciously recognize the mistakes faster and correct?
Okay. Let's take the case of the alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He's rejected. He thinks he's rejected striving, and he's going to escape into the bottle, right?
Yep.
And drink and drink and drink and drink. But even he's going to have to deal with this striving that you're talking about, right?
Yeah, because at some sort of conscious level, creation in its intelligence and its infinite variation is trying to learn from itself. So that man drinking himself to death in the disease of alcoholism is still learning something deep at a subconscious level. And if he ends his life early, before it should have ended, exclusive of the disease, he still has things to digest, not alcohol, but consciously digest through the spirit and the consciousness block that he is going to have to work out after the fact. The striving never stops, Mark. You can't stop it. Not in the physical sense, and certainly not in the otherworldly sense.
Okay, but we do have this choice, right?
You always have a choice. That's the important part, because that affords the infinite variation of creation to learn upon itself.
Isn't there's a right way and a wrong way, isn't there?
It's not the fact that something is right or wrong. There is there's a path that is straight and narrow, and then there's a path that is just zigzagging around, but all end up at the same place.
Oh, that's a very interesting way to put it.
I don't view life as right or wrong. It's just life, and life is always right. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, even if people choose to do bad things. But it's not wrong, because you were afforded the ability to do these things, but you're just straying further away from the one thing that has very explicit rules with a very deterministic outcome and path. You just choose to deviate from it as far as you like. You choose to distort your reality, live in the unreality of your life. But all things end in the same place. And so the question is, how quickly do you want to get to that end place? If people really saw the joy and the love in finding union with creation, going into a meditative state, recognizing the Sohar in their mind, like they would be there in a second. That was all that they would pursue. But because people don't have that, because they don't understand the fundamentals of their existence, they don't see the endpoints, they don't know how to get there. So they live this crazy dance where they become lost and drift in their own lives. But guess what? No matter what, you end up in the same spot.
Can you explain a little bit more the term Sohar?
Oh, yeah. Sohar, spelled with either S-O-H-A-R or Z-O-H-A-R, is the central sun of the universe, right? Or if you're galaxy. But if you connect with this thing, you can feel the warmth of it. It exists and pervades at all times. But in terms of our galaxy, we have one. But it's that central sun of everything. That's what that Sohar is. It's that one focal point, right? You're always going back to the place from whence you came. That's it. Little spirit goes out, goes in a body, lives and dies 10, 20 million times, loses its material body, goes into a timeless realm, observes and decompresses more, and then brings itself back in full union with creation so that creation can evolve itself. And then the process repeats forever, infinitely.
And you talked about the drifting on the water.
Yeah.
The unhealthy, or there's something about the drifting which is really not what we're looking for, right?
It's not that you're looking for it. Mark, I would urge you, I would suggest, to become as neutral as possible in your mind. As you do that, you still view life in a right-hand path. If you were to define it two ways, I'm going to do good things or bad things. But if you maintain absolute neutrality, especially under the premise that you understand that you have to evolve, you'll always fall down a positive neutral path. It's the straight and narrow path is that direction. Okay? But think about the neutrality in what you say. Think about the instance of something occurring. Just because something occurs doesn't make it a thing. It's just an occurrence. And you need to remove the bias from it and understand that everything, perceived as good or bad, has something to teach us. And at that point, you start to feel hate and rage melt away from your body. You start to find understanding in people that you thought were your enemies. And you start to feel understanding and love to those that you don't even know. And that's what happens at that point. But you can get there once you start to recognize that life is not designed to harm you. Life is designed to be life. You can drift as much as you want, but you exist because it wants you to exist. It doesn't want you to end. It just wants you to continue. It wants to evolve. That is the purpose of this thing. And the fear of drift only happens through people's fear of death because they don't understand the full aspects of life. I mean, I could drift right now. I could lose my clothes, walk off naked in the woods, and then people would no longer know me anymore. Mm-hmm. Is it the wrong thing for me to do? I don't know. Probably not. I may have the same exact outcome, right? But I'm taking this choice here because I think this is the most direct route for myself. Again, because I have choice. I have free will in the infinite variation of life and existence in this universe.
Okay, this is the way this picture is evolving in my mind. So we're going down on the path of life and we come to a fork in the road. If we go, say, for example, to the right, we can be neutral positive, continue on our path to the end. Mm-hmm. Or we can go with anger and depression, take the left path. We're going to end up eventually in the same place as the neutral positive guy, but we had probably, it was more fun, it was healthier, it was better to go the neutral positive way, right? Yeah. Is that what we're saying here? Okay.
Yeah. You always end up in the same spot. And look, Mark, to be clear, it doesn't really fucking matter how long it takes. Because there's just an almost incalculable, infinite amount of time in which this exists, this creation. Don't be in a rush to get to the point you naturally have to get to. The question is, enjoy, or the point is, enjoy this moment in this life exactly for what it is. Because the next one you're going to have is completely different. So you need to bring in all aspects of it. All the bad you've done, the good you have done, and then take a neutral stance on your history and who you are and continue to move forward at the normative pace of evolution. You can't force it. It is what it is. And there's a collection of understanding that happens over time. Wisdom is not built overnight. It's built over millennia. Many, many millennia, over and over and over and over and over, and until you become so fucking old and wise, billions of lifetimes from now, that when you have that next life, you don't make any of those bullshit mistakes. You know exactly what needs to be done. You know exactly how to accelerate the densification of your spirit. You know how to move your consciousness wherever it needs to go in the creation. You remove the limits of life. And at that point, you don't feel the compression of time. Those things go away. Life then feels endless. Time feels endless because you now start to live with it rather than next to it. And right now, humanity live next to life.
So after like 40 to 60 million years of this evolution of reincarnating, we eventually get to the point where we don't need our physical body, right?
Yeah, you'd be in a half state, like somewhat physical, pretty spiritual. But I think the matter of, see, as you see my hand here, it become more lightweight, I would say. The density of the body is not as required, as important as the spiritual density of that person.
Do you think the Plejaren are a little less dense than we are?
Oh yeah, I do think they're lighter.
Yeah. Do you think that some people might not be able to even see them, or
no?
But they would probably take on a different kind of look. I mean, they would almost probably emit a little light or something like that.
Yeah, they probably glisten, I would assume.
Wow.
I'd say in some respects, if you could see it, if you really could be perceptive to it, I bet you they would have the most minimal glow. I mean, it's total speculation.
Right.
But I'd say that their bodies are probably a lot lighter.
Mm-hmm. But I remember Billy saying something once in a contact report that made me, that I got the impression that they do have a different look about them. I can't remember exactly how I got
perfectly symmetrical faces, teeth that grow back, attached earlobes.
Yeah, plus the light of the body, the density or something was slightly different.
Yeah, well, of course, and they also live on a different planet. And that planet probably has a different gravity to it, which means the
bone density might be different.
And things would be different. I don't know if that's what you were talking about. I'd have to look it up.
That's very interesting. You know, we go over so much information, sometimes you almost have to slow down and just go step by step. It makes it a little... Even when we die, we're still striving, right?
Yeah, never stops. So the consciousness feeds all this energy, this information, the waveforms, I guess, up into the overall consciousness block. And the things that get stored up there are only things that are perfectly logical and beneficial to the evolution of something. The spirit, when digesting what happened in the consciousness of a life, knows what to keep. Of course it does. It's a part of creation. It's perfect in and of itself. So it's gonna get rid of the shit that's non-evolutive and keep the things that are evolutive. And then it's going to continue to stack that and grow in its resonance. So after the body ceases to live, the personality goes away, the consciousness dissolves, right? And then the only useful things that are left are what have been digested in the other world, that the spirit can then grow in its strength and then occupy a new body after the fact. But the striving doesn't stop. It can't stop. If something exists here in this world, Mark, it must exist somewhere else.
Explain. What do you mean it has to exist?
Everything has an equal opposite somewhere.
Oh.
It's a law. And it's a law that has to pervade on all realms, at all scales of all sizes. So what you see here, just take the inverse of it and assume it's happening somewhere else too.
When you say take the inverse of, that's a hard thing to kind of really wrap your mind around.
Like, I'm going out. I learn outwardly with my body. I go and grab stuff. I do things. I'm in this world interacting with it. But my mind is internalizing things, right?
Sure.
My body walks out. I expand out. I see my world, do things outwardly. I outwardly learn to internally recognize. Both things, requirements, both learning, striving, doing their things, but there's inverse actions that are occurring.
So, okay, let's say 65 to 140 million years ago, we've seen pictures or traces of dinosaur tracks in footprints, you know.
We got some out here. Yeah.
And sometimes we'll see primeval human or hominid life forms with footprints as well. Like sometimes we'll see dwarf-like human beings, giants, things of that nature. So, you know, the thing of it is, we really don't even understand the incredible things that's gone on the Earth.
No. We're so busy killing each other. How the hell are we going to figure out what happened in our past?
Right. I mean, we don't have the slightest understanding, really, of what the history of the Earth is, what the purpose of our life is. You know? I mean,
no, we don't.
It's a strange place.
And if we all just collectively come together with our amazing brain power, we could solve everything quickly, very quickly. But we don't. We're split. Can't even figure out what's going on the bottom of the ocean because we're split. Don't understand how the galaxies work because we're split. Can't figure out our climate issues? Because we're split.
Continue. That was a fascinating train of thought you just had.
Our world is transactional.
It's all about money.
It's all about taking something from something else, right? It's about being on top of rather than living with. It's
all about getting money, right?
Yeah, but at the most conscious level, Mark, we have separated ourselves from our true nature without even realizing it. We're completely separate from it. And you separate yourself like that. It's very easy to draw dividing lines in the sand to say that I live in this country and you live over here. Borders don't even really fucking exist. We just made them up. It's not even a real thing. Everything we're doing is dividing and conquering. What do you mean divide? Why do you have to divide it? Why does it require conquering? It's already here. It's for everyone to use, to share, to not abuse. It doesn't need to be divided. It can be lived upon equally, right? But we can't, we don't think like that. And then as states become separated, politics becomes separated, races become separated, and thinking becomes separate. And then development tracks of whole cultures. Some are accelerated quickly and others are dramatically slowed down. Same with the consciousness evolution. I'd bargain that some cultures don't, if we could measure it, are dramatically different in their consciousness evolution. Like in terms of years, like decades, maybe even
or longer,
centuries.
Yeah.
Because of the divisiveness of humans over time.
I remember reading somewhere in the contact reports that, that we mix with people that have different skin color and different history in a different part of the world. And there are some real challenges associated with that because, like if you live in Africa, for example, you're designed to deal with the germs and whatnot that are in Africa, the way the sunshine is, so much more intense. So their bodies are evolving according to the circumstances that they're
of their environment.
Their environment. And sometimes this immigration can cause problems. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't get into this, Mark.
I'm not trying to get into
this. Is not going to, I'm just going to tell you people won't receive this well, and this is not going to be understood. This is totally going to get taken out of context, and we shouldn't talk about it.
Okay. We can switch. We'll bring that up another time. And
then yeah.
I didn't. It's gonna. Yeah, you're right. You're probably. Right.
Yeah. Trust me. You don't want to go there.
People are gonna completely misinterpret what I'm trying to say.
That's what I'm saying. Don't even dig that hole, Mark.
Well, okay. We'll switch it to a different hole. This is another possible hole too.
Yeah.
The term angel, I think, is very, very destructive.
How so? You're going to educate me.
Well, maybe I shouldn't say very, very destructive. It could be very destructive. I'll get your take on it. Angel just means messenger in the original, ancient Greek. That's all it means. But today we have a complete conceptual notion. If someone says angel, we're thinking of someone with wings that can fly around like a seraphim or a cherub.
Glowing, God sent them.
Yeah, exactly. God sent them. So, and I think in the ancient times, they were just messengers. They could have been extraterrestrials. They could have been somebody from across the ocean that were more highly evolved. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so that's like a hole that we can't get out of. We're stuck with this term angel that changes people's whole worldview.
It does. I actually don't like angel figurines. I have no interest in them.
It's good to hear you say that.
Yeah, I don't like them. They give me a weird vibe. The other element is say for instance, this extraterrestrial shows up. And I, in my limited vocabulary and understanding of science and creation see this thing and be like, that's an angel. I don't know what's going on, but it's telling me something. It's an angel and they look like this. You must have been sent by God. Because if I can't describe you, I can ascribe you in your existence to this figurehead which I have. And I think that's why they took over so quick, is people are like, oh, these messengers that are showing up, or they're messengers from God. I mean, if you were the church and you were worried about your power structure, you'd immediately have to ascribe your power to say that God sent these people down. Otherwise, you're going to lose your power structure. Because these people show up and be like, yeah, I have no God. I come from a different planet, frankly. I'm here visiting. I just felt like I could kick out on the beach and have a cigar, but now you guys are treating me like some sort of deity. I should probably get out of here quick. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think over time, those things have become blended and misunderstood. And there was also a lack of descriptiveness and reasoning for the people that probably first engaged with those travelers. And I think some of those travelers are probably coming back to our planet right now in different ways, shapes, or form.
You know, people today are calling extraterrestrials fallen angels.
Oh, gosh. See, the old ruts of human thought, continue to just spread their little tentacles everywhere.
And they go back to the Book of Enoch. Someday we should look at that. Doesn't Billy have his own Book of Enoch?
I don't
Similar. No, or what's the other guy's book you guys study? Talks about the Om Fallen Murado.
Oh, the Om Fallen Murado? Yeah.
That's the one where they talk about the Watchers. Is it the Watchers they talk about?
Yeah, there's Watchers.
Really? Do you have that book handy?
Yeah, I do.
Do you?
It's in all German, but yeah, I got it handy.
Can you go through it? I know we don't have 5 minutes. That would be
handy. Oh, no, Mark, I don't have it on me. I have it on my bookshelf back home. I'm in the studio right now.
So you'd have to run across the house.
Yeah. And it's a big book. Things like the size of my torso.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's big.
You know, one thing that I'm very interested in, I don't know if you are or not, but doesn't that book specifically talk about the Watchers and they cohabitated with the Earth women and had the offspring that were giants?
Yeah, with the Evas. Yeah.
Yeah, it talks about that?
Yeah.
Is that something you'd like to look at sometime, or is that too far off the practical?
I can bring it up. I'm going to have to... I can't read the whole thing in German, so I'm going to have to translate the
Could we go
sections
through the German a little bit? And through the German words? That would be a really cool thing.
Yeah, we could break it down if you wanted to do so.
To help me stay on my German, too.
Yeah.
Because
Your German failing you recently?
Well, I'm just not doing it enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you got to do it every day. You got to become conversational with people. You should just send the messages in German for those that speak German around you.
Is that what
respond
you do?
Back to you? Yeah, of course. Anytime you bring it up, put yourself in a rock and a hard place. You have to figure it out. You have to navigate the conversation.
I love that. I'm very fascinated with that time in history. The offspring of the quote angels, which were probably what Plejaren or somebody, or Lyrians, I don't know.
Yeah.
Lyran. They were giants. Remember? Huge.
Yeah.
31 feet tall, something like that.
It's pretty cool. Could you imagine how
you could
run so fast? Imagine swimming in the ocean. The ocean feel like a small pool, you know? How nice.
We're out of time, man. Thanks for joining me again. Let's hopefully talk next Sunday if it all works out.
All right.
Who knows, buddy?
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it being on the air with you again.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
See ya.